The DOGE Task Force will come to order. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today on our November meeting. We do have a quorum. We have quite a few with us joining virtually on Zoom. And then my co-chair, Senator Lakey, has some professional court hearings that he can't move. He hopes to join us via Zoom. Soon it would be his turn to conduct this meeting, but since he's not here, I'm running it today. So the first item on our agenda, we have some minutes from our last meeting from October 23rd, and I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes along with a second. And to our task force members online, we may need to rely on you for a lot of this. So, Representative Manwaring.
Mr. Chairman, I've reviewed the minutes and would make a motion that we approve those minutes.
Thank you. Is there a second? Representative Tanner?
I second.
Senator Summerroth has seconded that. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, the motion is to approve the minutes from October 23rd. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
We'll wait for the echo online. Any opposed by nay? And the motion carries and the minutes are approved. So today, what we're going to do is continue with the code cleanup. That'll be the first part of our agenda. We'll have an update also on the comments that have been submitted through the DOGE portal. We'll have an update on some survey we did of the task force members, and then we'll dive into these consolidation of proposals 1 through 10, and then we'll have some time for public testimony depending on how long we go with those. So let's start, Mr. Alex Penny from LSO, if you could come up and present the code cleanup for the benefit of the task force members. We did receive an email yesterday, I believe, from LSO with all of the sections. So, Mr. Penny, if you could introduce yourself for the record and walk us through the code cleanup sections.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the task force. My name is Alex Penny. I'm a research analyst with the Impact Review Team and LSO. And I have an update on the Idaho Code Cleanup Act and House Bill 14. So I have before you today 53 provisions that we believe are ready to advance to bill drafting, and we've been sending these weekly. The breakdown for those by agency, there were 5 with the Department of Environmental Quality, 15 with the State Board of Education, 7 with the Idaho Transportation Department, 5 with the Petroleum Clean Water Trust Fund, 1 with the State Appellate Public Defender, 2 with the Department of Water Resources, 9 with Percy, 1 with the State Controller, 1 with the Department of Juvenile Corrections, 3 with the Department of Fish and Game, 2 with the Division of Human Resources, and 2 with the Division of Veterans Services. I am happy to answer any questions on any of the provisions that have been provided. I know as well that there are representatives from the agencies in the audience if they can maybe handle a question that comes up. And I do want to note that this is probably the last large packet that we will be sending before session. But that concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Penny. An initial question, could you give us kind of a progress to date on how far along we are with all the sections submitted?
Mr. Co-Chair, we are around 160 or so provisions that we've reviewed to date and that we've passed on to the task force. We've reviewed more than that, but 160 are being advanced to bill drafting.
Okay, thank you. Task force members, any questions for Mr. Penny? Any online? I've got a few, seeing there's none else. On page 62, this is related to the Big Payette Lake Water Council. It mentions that it's now a nonprofit. Is there anything that would jeopardize the status of the nonprofit based on repealing this code cleanup?
Mr. Chairman, our reading didn't suggest that. I think a representative from the nonprofit might be in the audience if you would like to check.
Is that okay? There is a representative. If you'd be willing to address us at the podium? Okay. If you come introduce yourself for the record, and then if you could answer that question.
Hello, my name is Deb Faraday, and I'm the president of the Big Payette Lake Water Quality Council. We are just a 501c3. We are not, of course, the statutory council that was sunsetted back in about 2005. When we started up in 2017, we're just a group that wanted to continue the advocacy and the protection and the education for Payette Lake. So we applied to the Secretary of State to use the name Big Payette Lake Water Quality Council. And so we applied for 501c3 status. So we just do have a question about the repeal of Title 39, Chapter 66. If that original act does, if it's repealed, will that have an effect on our ability? We're still a watershed advisory group under IDEQ. We were just established in January of 2025 as a watershed advisory group because a brand new study was done on Payette Lake by the University of Idaho in 2022. And that's the only study that's been done since the Paul Wood study in '98. And that's how that original act became to be. And so DEQ brought the WAG together so that we can advise them on water quality issues. So our council just continues to do work to try to keep a lot of this energy alive so that we can really take care of this gem of Idaho, which is Payette Lake. Now, did I answer any confusing? I know it's confusing to have the name. It's the same, but it had been sunsetted, so we were able just to take that name.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's sufficient. So thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah,
for your
you're
testimony.
welcome.
Okay, Mr. Penny, come back up. Okay, this one might be for the state board, but starting on page 155, it's talking about specialized diplomas, and there's several sections in here around specialized diplomas. I think the question is, in the write-up, if we're repealing these specialized diplomas, it looks like districts can still award the diplomas based on an IDAPA rule. But the question is, are any businesses or maybe other parties relying on these diplomas? I don't know if you have that, Mr. Penny, or
Yeah.
I see Ms. White back there.
Mr. Chairman, I can turn to my colleague or
She looks like she's ready to come up. So if you could state your name for the record and if you'd be willing to answer that question.
Jennifer White, Executive Director of the State Board of Education. Glad to be here today to talk to you about any of the questions that you have related to the provisions that have been submitted related to 33-523 through 524 and 526. Those are diplomas that, so long as state minimum graduation requirements are met, and any school district may issue a specialized diploma that it wants to, either within these statutes or outside of it. So there's really nothing that prevents school districts from issuing specialized diplomas currently, and they certainly do. We believe that this should remain local control and that we can work with our LEAs and the State Department of Education to allow the flexibility we need for appropriate recognition that's meaningful.
So, to your understanding, if thank you for that answer, Ms. White, by repealing this, at local control, if local districts still want to use these sort of specialized diplomas, then they are free to do so. And if there's a business or somebody else relying on these, that wouldn't impact them if the local district continues this.
Correct. And yes, Co-Chair Ellers, yes, that is correct. And school districts currently do so.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate that. Any other questions from the task force while we have Ms. White up here. I'm not seeing any. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And let's see. Any further questions on code cleanup? All right, I'm not seeing any. If so, the chair would entertain a motion and a second, similar to what we've done in past meetings, to move forward with these. I think it's at the bottom of your attachment, a motion. Prepared motion 1 is what it's called. All right, Representative Tanner,
Yeah, for a motion, Mr. Chairman.
a motion's in order.
I move that the DOGE Task Force, as its preparation of to the Idaho Code Cleanup Act, recommend the list of 53 provisions of the Idaho Code listed in Attachment 1 as submitted by the Associated State Agencies be delivered to the Research and Legislative Division of LSO to begin the bill drafting process for germane committee consideration.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second it.
Believe that was Representative Scott. Was that correct? I couldn't.
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. All right, so committee, the motion before us is to move forward with these 53 provisions as listed in the attachment. Is there any discussion on this motion? Seeing none and hearing none, those in favor signify by voting aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by nay? Motion carries. So, all right, we'll move forward with those. Next, Mr. Penny, I think you're up again. So if you could reintroduce yourself for the record, and we'll discuss the DOGE portal comments. So why don't you go ahead with that?
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Again, for the record, my name is Alex Penny. I'm a research analyst with the Impact Review Team and LSO. And I have a quick update on the DOGE Government Efficiency Portal, the public portal, and the comments that we've been receiving. And just an update, the committee or the task force has been receiving these weekly as well. One second. Thank you. So again, just a breakdown. It's an online portal, and it has, and it's an avenue that the public can submit comments and instances of waste or abuse that they've found and any inefficiencies, and then they can propose solutions as well. So since the last meeting in October, we've had 21 additional submissions. As you can see on this slide, it's just an updated count of the policy area that the submitter selected. Again, one of the things that we've tried to do is to categorize that a little bit further to make it useful to the task force. And you can see our categorization up on the screen. Again, health and welfare, health and Medicaid is at the top, then education, and there's a bunch of other categories for things like state operations, the legislature, or federal and local policy. But that concludes my remarks, and I'm happy to answer any questions about the comments that we've received so far.
All right, thank you. Committee members, any questions on this? Doesn't look like it. I do have just one comment, and I believe Senator Blaylock's on the Zoom meeting, but I just want to acknowledge that she's been taking the lead in helping out, going through all these comments, and we're starting to classify them and look at ones that might need an agency response or ones that we can send to the relevant agency. My last look, I think there are around 70 different comments. We're trying to filter through and get back to the agencies and get a response from them. So Senator Blaylock, I don't know if you wanted to comment on any further on that.
No, yeah, that's what we're doing. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear me.
We do.
Hopefully I'm coming through. Okay. So yeah, we'll go through and categorize them, and hopefully that can make it a little bit easier for people and the committee to digest, and hopefully put some of these to use.
Great, thank you. Any further questions for Mr. Penny? Okay, seeing none, thank you for your presentation.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
All right, next up, I just wanted to just give kind of a brief update on some next steps. You've probably all noted there's a lot of agencies, divisions, departments, commissions that we've had listed on here. And so we did survey our members and look at which ones they're interested in moving forward. There's, between the whole task force, there was 32 ones that came forward with varying degrees of interest in terms of whether it's full repeal or consolidation and a merge, or maybe just some other efficiencies. So we will work on, and I need to talk with my co-chair, Senator Lakey, on this, but in the future, that will likely be our direction going forward, is the list that came from that. So that's really the only update and comment on that. So let's go into the next, on some of these proposals we have here in the agenda, 10 different ones listed. And what we'd like to do here is go through, we have a presenter for each of the 10, and then take a few minutes to hear from the presenter, and then we'll take public testimony, and we'll see how much time we have remaining after we get through all of these. Without objection, for scheduling, I'm going to move up number 7 first, and then we can go through the rest of the order. So that's the Regional Committee for Early Intervention Services. So let's start there. So we have Jared Larson, Chief of Staff for the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare. Mr. Larson, if you could introduce yourself for the record, and then make your presentation for the committee.
Thank you. Good afternoon, committee. I'm Jared Larson, Chief of Staff at the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare, presenting on the proposed repeal of the early intervention regional committees for the early intervention services. They are part of our infant toddler program, which receives $9.65 million of federal funding to provide developmental therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech language therapy, hearing and vision services, and so forth, to carry out that federal grant, which is part of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, Part C. And as part of that requirement, part of the federal law, we are required to have a interagency coordinating council, which is required. In 1991, the legislature created 7 regional committees for each of the 7 regions, regional early education committees. In FY25, there were a total of 38 meetings, and we spent about 100 hours of staff time to support these. But these committees are not required by federal law. They were an optional thing that the state did in enacting this program in 1991. This was actually something that we proposed to repeal in response to this committee's creation, and it was something that we were planning to propose through the executive agency legislation process, but we are happy to work with the department, or with this committee, to consider its repeal and present that to the legislature. If there are any more precise questions on this, I have Deputy Director Monty Pro here, who is over Children, Youth, and Family Services, which the infant and toddler program is a part, and we'll stand for any questions if there are any from the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Committee members, do we have any questions? Senator Semmelroth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Mr. Larson. I don't know if this question is for you or for Deputy Director Proud. I just wanted to ensure, first of all, because we're talking about child find services, those services that are being provided through these regional committees will continue to be supported through the interagency work. Is that correct?
Mr. Larson?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, no services would be affected by this repeal. The federal law requires us to have an interagency coordinating council, which we have. Our proposal was to add a regional component to that so that it requires in the 7 members on there to be, so there'd be regional representation. These committees provide an opportunity in the regions for communication, but they don't necessarily, they don't affect services whatsoever. It's just greater community involvement. So no services will be affected by this repeal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions from the task force? Okay, I don't see any. So thank you, Mr. Larson. Next up, we'll just go back to what was listed as number 1 on the agenda, which is the proposed merger of the Bingo Raffle Advisory Board with the Lottery Commission, which is Andrew, let's see, you'll have to pronounce your last name for me, the Director of Lottery and Liquor. So if you could introduce yourself for the record and go ahead and make your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Andrew Arulanandam. Please feel free to call me Andrew. I am the director of the Idaho State Liquor Division and the Idaho State Lottery. To address the first item on the agenda, we've had a problem staffing and recruiting membership for the Bingo Commission. The last time we were able to have a quorum was more than 2 years ago. The Bingo Commission has no statutory authority. Whatever recommendations they make has to be ratified by the Lottery Commission. We can draw on the expertise of some of the members, and we can make recommendations in a more efficient manner to the Lottery Commission. So this is a pretty simple proposition that we're putting forth to this committee.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions for the director? Representative Tanner.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Andrew.
Yes, sir.
Just curious, so if they haven't been able to meet, how many years back was it?
It was in May of 2023.
So back in May of 2023, I mean, we haven't been able to meet that long. From what I understand it, they haven't been able to meet before that. It's been sporadic from even getting it. It's still an advisory board going to you. I'm just curious on why we're actually just merging in instead of just removing it and I mean, you guys are the ultimate decision maker in that, and then coming back, if there is additional legislation, would be coming back to the legislature.
Director Andrew.
Mr. Chairman, Representative, we think this is the most efficient way to address a problem that has persisted for a period of time. It's something where as I mentioned, we've had trouble recruiting for that, and we've struggled and cobbled people over the years to fill this position. I'm relatively new to my position. I took over in September of last year, and this was brought to my attention, and I believe it was an issue that was attempted to be addressed a number of years ago, but for whatever reason was unsuccessful.
Follow-up? Go ahead, Representative Tanner.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess my follow-up would be, do we even need to merge it? Or can we just put it underneath you in general without actually merging an advisory board underneath you?
Director?
Mr. Chairman, Representative, I believe there may be some actions that would require the full commission approval, and therefore I think it would be prudent to have that stamp of approval from the commission. It's as I stand here before you, it's hard for me to go through the gamut of things we may be facing. So in the interest of being, perhaps a little more cautious, I think for now it would be prudent to have a stamp of approval from the commission.
Okay, thank you. Representative Manwaring.
Thank you, Co-Chair and Director. Just along that same line, I think if I understand that line of questioning, it's basically why do we need the advisory board at all, right? So why can't we just have the commission be the decision makers? And I don't want to speak for Representative Tanner, but that's sort of where my mind goes when he asked that question. So do we need the advisory board at all merged underneath the commission, or can we just have the commission making these decisions regarding the bingo and raffle issues?
Director?
Mr. Chairman, Representative, I believe that's what we are trying to do. We will not have the bingo advisory council. The staff will do all the research and present it to the commission, and the commission can make the decision.
Representative Manwaring?
Okay. That answers my question. I mean, I think calling this a merger, just a comment, I think calling this a merger may be causing some of this confusion. I think it's really an elimination of that advisory board and putting that authority under the commission, and if I'm understanding correctly.
Yeah, Representative Manwaring, I think that's right. The sort of proposal, as I understand, is basically just striking out language referring to any sort of bingo raffle board or commission, and then all the duties would just fall under the existing lottery commission, essentially. So there wouldn't be a separate standalone board. Okay, any further questions on this one? Okay, I'm not seeing any. I do recognize that my co-chair, Senator Lakey, has joined us online, so glad he's here with us. That gives us our full task force. All right, Director, you're also up for the next one, which is the consolidation of lottery and liquor. So if you could reintroduce yourself for the record and then discuss this one, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Andrew Arulanandam. I'm the director of the Idaho State Liquor Division and the Idaho State Lottery. During my interview process, I had discussions with the governor and his staff regarding his vision for both agencies. Governor Little made it clear that he expected lean, limited, and accountable operations at these departments. As a result, we have been reviewing and implementing ways to save money over the last 14 months. The governor's office has submitted a 3.5-page document to Chairman Ehlers that analyzes the potential upsides, downsides, and some issues to consider. In the interest of time, I will draw your attention to 10 key points. Point number 1. We have shared leadership, but distinct missions. Currently, the Idaho State Liquor Division and Idaho Lottery share a director, yet operate under different statutory authorities and serve fundamentally different missions. Liquor emphasizes public safety and controlled distribution, while lottery focuses on revenue generation through gaming with an optimal marketing program. Point number 2, operational structures with minimal overlap. Liquor is a labor-intensive retail and warehousing operation which contrasts sharply with lottery's technology, security, and marketing-driven model, providing limited natural opportunities for functional consolidation. Point number 3, existing administrative efficiencies have already been implemented. This is through ITS and shared HR services. I would like to point out, due to the fact that lottery has unique security requirements, we have an in-house secure specialized IT team. Point number 4, targeted opportunities for further efficiency. While major enterprise resource planning or financial system integration is currently not feasible due to existing contracts and complexity. Limited opportunities remain in shared marketing, security, and smaller scale procurement. Point number 5, facilities and co-location constraints. Liquor's state-owned main warehouse could potentially absorb lottery's leased warehouse functions, though strict gaming security requirements may limit the feasibility. Office co-location remains impractical due to current space and operational needs. Point number 6, substantial legal and mission-driven barriers. Consolidation would require some legislative and potentially constitutional changes, while combining a regulatory enterprise with a gaming enterprise. Point number 7, current cost-cutting actions already yielding major savings. Since September of last year, governor-directed reductions have produced $326,000 in ongoing annual savings for the lottery and $508,000 for liquor, including elimination of positions, restructuring roles, and a cancellation of a more than $200,000 a year contract with the lottery. Point number 8, future contract-driven savings, significantly increasing our total impact. We have newly negotiated lottery vendor contract extensions beginning fiscal year 27 that are projected to deliver $2,055,000 in additional ongoing annual savings, driven by reduced rates with Intralot and a fixed rate agreement with Diamond Game. Point number 9, total savings now approaching almost $3 million. The combined savings right now is $2.889 million per year. Point number 10, the recommended path is, what we would like to see is an incremental integration. Given the statutory and operational issues, one thing to consider may be that the most viable option might be a phased shared services approach supported by a formal cost benefit and legal analysis, and of course with stakeholder engagement. Mr. Chairman, concludes my remarks, and I'm open for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Are there any questions for the Director? Representative Tanner.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Andrew. You talked about a $2.8 million potential savings. I'm just curious where that's at. I mean, I went through quickly, just looking at just payroll costs, just personnel costs. I mean, you were $20.6 million into liquor, $4.9 million into lottery. Is it in the personnel aspect, or are there other operational costs that will be a driving cost factor potentially?
Director.
Mr. Chairman, Representative, majority of that is in the renegotiated contracts with two of our vendors at the Idaho Lottery. Some of that, more than $500,000 of that, is as a result of positions that were eliminated in at the Idaho State Liquor Division. 300,000 plus of that is as a result of elimination of contracts and one position at the Idaho Lottery.
Representative Tanner.
Yeah, I just think, Mr. Chairman, Andrew, I mean, I've been on JFAC. I've actually seen throughout the time kind of what has gone on both within liquor and within lottery. I'm just more curious. I mean, I get the contractual aspects of it, but those are aspects we can negotiate either way. I mean, we should be able to benefit those either way. I'm more looking at, is there more personnel aspects? I mean, I get that director is going to be on both, but are there other cost-saving aspects? I mean, you're looking at personnel costs in that large of amount and that many people. Is there have we really done an analysis on true cost savings when it comes to personnel within that?
Director.
Mr. Chairman, Representative, I have just completed a meeting with every single employee at the Idaho State Lottery. I don't have any ideas that I would say right now are ready for prime time. Based on the completion of the meetings, I am consulting with DHR, and we will be doing some research. But I'm not ready to make any pronouncements. But I will say that we are always looking for efficiencies. We did so on a much earlier at the Idaho State Liquor Division, and now I'm putting my focus on the Idaho Lottery.
Okay. Thank you. Senator Lakey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Apologize for any road noise. I'm on my way. Andrew, I'm familiar we have a lottery commission. Is there a corresponding commission for the alcohol division? And if so, how do you see those two operating, if there are two, if we pursue this?
Director?
Mr. Chairman, Co-Chair Lakey, no, there is no commission for the Idaho State Liquor Division.
Senator?
That's good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any further questions from the task force? One I have, and maybe just taking a step back for our task force members, as we get through these, I think we have an action item at the end to either, recommend to move forward, full steam ahead on some of these, or others might need further review. We might need to pause or look at it. And hearing your point number 10 and looking at our memo, even at the bottom, it talks about maybe this one's a little more complex. And so maybe we need to, it says, do a formal cost benefit study, maybe consult further with the stakeholders, and look into some of these other questions that the task force has raised. I guess, how far along do you feel we are, or is there some more time? Should we do some of these more steps before moving forward as a full recommendation, in your opinion?
Mr. Chairman, I think a lot of more study is needed. There cannot be, these two entities are very different. And the way I guess I would try to explain it is, imagine a lottery company buying a liquor company or vice versa. And there's very little in common between both those entities. The savings right now would be minimal. As someone who came in just over a year ago, I looked at, for example, consolidating finance. That is, in most people's viewpoints, a pretty easy thing to consolidate, but not so. We have two different financial software and two different systems at both agencies. The ERPs at both agencies are different. There's also ongoing contracts that may cost us more money in the short run. I think we need to do an in-depth study to see, number one, if it's feasible. We also need to keep in mind the legal and legislative issues that we would have to address, and see where the break-even point may be, and see if it's worthwhile. It's a little bit more complex. I think it requires some more in-depth study.
Thank you. I appreciate that for that insight. In particular, when you mentioned the Constitution too, being may need to be looked at if we need to make these changes. So that's a bigger step. I don't see any further questions. Oh, Representative Tanner, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was actually just going to make the same comment. I think this is one that we should hold on. Looking at it, we're in two different budget areas. We're in general government, we're in economic development. So to me, I think where this lands, I do see potential commonalities between the two, and I think there's some synergy that actually can be done. I think there is additional cost savings that can be done, but I think this is something we should maybe look a little further into.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, we have Matt Weaver with the director of the Idaho Department of Water Resources, also interim administrator of the Idaho Soil and Water Conservation Committee, which that is the discussion point here, is an integration of the Soil and Water Commission to the Department of Water Resources. So, Mr. Weaver, if you could introduce yourself for the record and then make your presentation.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Matt Weaver, Director of the Department of Water Resources, Acting Administrator for the Soil Water Conservation Commission. And I'm here today to review the process that I've undertaken to evaluate the merger of the Commission with the Department of Water Resources and to present the recommendations for a successful merger that we identified during our evaluation. I'd like to just quickly acknowledge that I'm joined here today by Eric Olson. He's the chairman of the Soil Water Conservation Commission, George Hitz, Deputy Administrator for the Commission, and Brian Patton, Deputy Director for Water Resources and Executive Officer for the Idaho Water Resource Board. I was appointed to be Director of the Department of Water Resources in September of 23. Prior to that, I was Deputy Director for 10 years at the Department of Water Resources. In addition to serving as a director, I am also the acting administrator for Soil and Water Conservation Commission, having been in that role since May 16th, when I assumed it, when the commission appointed me into that role with the retirement of the former administrator, Delwyn Treves. A brief overview of the Department of Water Resources. That agency was founded in 1895 when the legislature created the Office of the State Engineer, which became the modern version of the Department of Water Resources in 1974. The department's mission is to serve Idahoans by ensuring their water is conserved and available to sustain Idaho's economy, ecosystems, and resulting quality of life. Major activities of the department include water allocation, which includes statewide adjudication of all water rights, water administration, collecting, analyzing, and publishing water resource data, and partnering with the Idaho Water Resource Board to carry out or fund water sustainability projects, aging infrastructure projects, flood management projects, water measurement projects, recharge, and cloud seeding. The department is staffed with about 170 full-time water resource agents, scientists, engineers, project managers, and other technical positions. The Soil Water Conservation Commission was established in 1939 in response to the Dust Bowl, with the mission of helping to form and coordinate individual soil and water conservation districts. The agency is governed by 7 commissioners who are appointed by the governor. The commission directs the administrator, who oversees the day-to-day operations of the commission, which includes approximately 18 staff. The commission works together with the state's 50 locally led soil and water conservation districts to implement projects that conserve and enhance the soil and water resources of our state. The commission has 10 conservationists who work statewide, assisting up to 7 conservation districts to help them in their mission, providing technical service, educational opportunities, grant writing opportunities, and other services. Other major programs of the commission include its Resource Conservation and Rangeland Development Loan Program, the Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program, support of DEQ in creating total maximum daily loads for ag use, and the Water Quality Program for ag. I have 2 handouts with me today. The first one looks like this, and it is a performance report that was published last night by the Association of Soil and Conservation Districts, and it is a good comprehensive summary of the work that is done by the districts and the commission, and how the money that goes towards supporting the commission is leveraged with other money to complete the conservation work across the state. A couple of days into my role as acting administrator, the governor asked me and the commission to evaluate the possible merger of our 2 agencies. After consulting with the commission, we agreed to jointly hire 2 contractors, the Langdon Group and Boardworks by Ledgerwood, to carry out the necessary outreach, stakeholder engagement, and preparations of recommendations. The Langdon Group has government support expertise in public involvement, partnering, facilitation, and situational assessment, while Ray Ledgerwood has extensive experience and expertise with soil and water conservation work nationally and in Idaho, in addition to his expertise in organizational evaluation. Our formal evaluation process started in July and concludes this week with my presentations to the Association of Soil Conservation Districts, this body, and the Idaho Water Resource Board. In addition, we are publishing a recommendations report that is the culmination of our 4-month evaluation, and that's the second handout that I have for you. This includes the recommendations chapter in the report, which we published today, and there's a QR code at the back of that that will take you to an online resource that has the entire document. Our evaluation process included a situational assessment where the Langdon Group met with 48 participants or individual groups representing 25 organizations, stakeholder surveys, publication of a situational assessment summary report, an integration workshop that we held at the end of October where we prepared the recommendations that are in the report, and then, of course, publication of the report itself. Just at a high level, recommendations that came out of that process. In evaluating other agencies that the Soil Water Conservation Commission could be combined with, the Department of Water Resources was the preferred agency, largely for that overlap in mission that they share. You could do this by creating a Soil Water Conservation Bureau within the Department of Water Resources and housing the commission staff within that bureau. And you would keep all of the non-support service positions or technical staff within that bureau. All of the support services or non-technical staffs we would evaluate for combination or merger with the department's support services. It would be important to preserve the non-regulatory voluntary independence of the commission, to modify Idaho Code 222718 to replace the reference to the Department of Agriculture with Department of Water Resources, to preserve the commission and its distinct statutory duties and responsibilities that are set forth in Title 22, Chapter 27, to create a conservation partnership framework through an MOU which would establish the formal commission director relationship, and then to effectively communicate the merger of this to the 50 soil water conservation districts across the state and other stakeholder groups. I've been attending yesterday and today the annual conference of the Idaho Association of Soil Conservation Districts. They represent those 50 soil and water conservation districts across the state. I had hoped to have a resolution supporting this merger. I anticipate we will have it, but it was not ready today for my presentation. With that, I would stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Weaver. Committee members, any questions? Representative Tanner.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Weaver, I think you just hit on the very last point. One of my questions was where the boards, where they kind of stood. Are you seeing more support? I know there's been talk in the past between looking at this going to ag or going to water. And I also know that this budget in general has been cut down significantly throughout the years. I mean, from 2023 to 2024, I think was 33% to last year additional, I think it was 19% decrease from the previous year. So I'm just more curious on where everybody else stands on this and where it should land, if they're nervous about moving it within a department or if it's just not the one they actually wanted.
Director Weaver.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Representative Tanner, that's a good question. I will say at the outset of this, I think there was a lot of apprehension. Anytime you are contemplating this kind of change, you're going to induce anxiety. And I think that's why it was important to get their full feedback and say, if we were going to successfully merge these agencies, what would be the requirements, the recommendations to do so? And as we worked through that process, I think we did bring a lot of the districts on board, the commission on board, although I wouldn't want to speak for them and other stakeholder groups. Do we have unanimous support for this? I don't think so, based on some of the discussion I've heard over the last day and a half, but I think we well exceed majority support in that group for continuing to evaluate this and bring these agencies together.
Okay, thank you. Just follow up. Yeah, go ahead, Representative.
Yeah, thank you. Director Weaver, I'm more curious, are they just not wanting to move at all, or are they wanting it to move someplace else?
Director Weaver.
Well, one of the things that we discussed through the evaluation process and identified was if they were going to become part of another agency, the Department of Water Resources was the preferred agency. Certainly, they've had a relationship with ag and lands in the past. There might also be a good fit with the Department of Environmental Quality. And in consideration of those four agencies, what came out of this process as Water Resources was the best fit.
Okay, thank you. Task Force members, any further questions? Seeing none, thank you for your time and your presentation. All right, next on the agenda, we have online, actually, Wendy Sechrist, the Executive Director of the Idaho Workforce Development Council, for the discussion on moving the STEM Action Center to the Workforce Development Council. So, Ms. Sechrist, if you could introduce yourself for the record and then make your presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. Wendy Sechrist with the Workforce Development Council. And I'll just jump right in here. I do have a a handout that I can send to you after the meeting that just provides a one-page overview of this. But when the STEM Action Center was established 10 years ago, there was a need to embed the importance of critical thinking, problem solving, digital literacy, other STEM types of skills in education from early learning through traditional K-12 and through out-of-school opportunities to align with the jobs of the future. The STEM Action Center has done a great job of raising that awareness and putting tools and resources into training teachers, providing classroom materials, and getting kids excited about learning science, technology, engineering, and math. On the Workforce Development Council side, our focus has been on connecting education to careers and also preparing Idahoans for jobs of the future. We've traditionally focused on the high school transition, post-secondary education, and workforce training, but have recognized that career awareness needs to start sooner in elementary and middle school. To that end, the STEM Action Center and Workforce Development Council started working together in 2019 on a teacher externship program, which provides classroom teachers and college and career advisors a 200-hour paid externship during the summer with an employer doing a real job so that they can go back to the classroom and talk about the skills, careers, workplace behaviors that are expected. These teachers impact thousands of kids, and if they can talk about construction and manufacturing and energy and healthcare, forest products, other Idaho industries, then the kids can start seeing themselves as having these options and perhaps be better equipped to take advantage of CTE and advanced opportunities as they transition into high school. In August of 2024, the governor asked me to step in and serve as the executive director of the STEM Action Center. And we approached that as an opportunity to look at the future of the organization. And we posed 3 questions to ourselves. One was, has the STEM Action Center served its mission? The second was, are there components of the STEM Action Center that should be integrated into other agencies? And the third was, should the STEM Action Center continue to stand on its own? We started with doing stakeholder interviews and an evaluation of the inputs and outputs for each of the major programs. We looked at the staff time, the resources spent, and we evaluated whether we thought that those results were commensurate with the investment that we were making in the programs. So of the 5 major programs that the STEM Action Center operates, we determined that 1 should be discontinued, 3 should be continued, and the 5th was our partnership on the teacher externship program, which we would fully integrate into the Workforce Development Council regardless. So the next step that we took was to decide where the 3 programs that we felt should be continued should live. The programs are teacher professional development, the ecosystem, which is a local community-based STEM engagement, and then computer science. We talked with the department and the Board of Education to see if it made sense to shift those programs to them. And while on paper, it might seem to make perfect sense, but one of the really important functions of these 3 programs is that they are engaging both public and private, in school and out of school, certified and non-certified educators. So all 3 of us, Workforce Development Council, the Department of Education, and State Board of Education, felt that the programs were better suited in the Workforce Development Council in the long term. So the program that we're proposing to eliminate is STEM designated schools. Since the inception of that statute in 2017, only 12 to 15 schools have received designation. And when we were speaking with the stakeholders, we found that the incorporation of project-based learning was the real magic with the STEM designation process. So we thought it would be better to repurpose approximately $100,000 that's directly spent on that program and eliminate the staff position associated with the program. We're going to need to pay out the schools that are currently designated over the next 5 years, so that the transition is going to be gradual, but we will be able to immediately start incorporating project-based learning into the existing professional development programming offered by the merged agencies. Once the decision was made to propose the merger or the integration, we looked at the staff and at the budget and determined that we could save over $300,000 per year and eliminate 2 staff positions by consolidating. We also went through statute, and we're recommending the repeal of all of the sections that are specific to the STEM Action Center, along with some minor adjustments to the Workforce Development Council statute to clearly provide direction on STEM activities. And then there are a few cleanup sections in education, tax, and human resource statutes where they refer to STEM Action Center. On the JFAC side, they're going to see a budget that contains one line item to eliminate the entire budget and spending authority of the STEM Action Center, which totals about $6.3 million. And then the Workforce Development Council's budget includes one line item to transfer in just a little bit over $3 million, along with 6 of the 8 positions that the STEM Action Center had. So with that overview, I would be happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you, Director Sechrist, for that presentation. Committee members, any questions for the director? Representative Tanner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Sechrist, I appreciate you being here today. I am more curious because I've dug into the STEM Action Center multiple different times within JFAC, and the problem I've always seen is that we've spent all this money. I mean, we're spending roughly, like you stated, about $6 million every year. It's stayed pretty consistent for a very long time, but it is the results of what we're actually doing. They cannot ever tell me results. How many kids are we actually reaching? Where are we moving some of the needles in some of these areas? And the answer has always been, we'll get back to you, or we don't know. How can you guys as Workforce Development Council actually bring evaluational processes to this to actually make these to where they're actually worthwhile for the state and we're actually spending taxpayer money in a good and wise way?
Director Sechrist.
Mr. Chairman and Representative Tanner, perfect question. A lot of the measures that the STEM Action Center has traditionally used have been on outputs. So looking at, we hosted these events, how many students attended, or how many media impressions did we get from doing these types of activities? And that was something that we were taking a real hard look at in evaluating the effectiveness of the programs. We do have a committee within the Workforce Development Council on program impact and evaluation, and we are working with that committee to structure very specific metrics that we would be measuring the effectiveness of the STEM programs on. So teacher professional development, what are we, where are we seeing, teachers that maybe qualify for additional certifications, such as computer science certifications? What activities are they bringing into their classroom? STEM Action Center really has been around engagement and outreach, and those are harder to measure with, tangible. We know that this student who was, attended this event ended up in, either this STEM education program or this job. We don't have the ability to make those direct correlations, but we absolutely believe that we are going to be able to do a better job of defining and setting metrics for the programs of the STEM Action Center.
Thank you. Senator Semmelroth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Director Sechrist, for that presentation. Within the spirit of government efficiency and looking at how we're combining and merging our different agencies, your work, you're kind of a year ahead because of where you all started. Where you are now, do you have any advice for agencies who are at the beginning of this work, especially when it comes to employee morale, workplace culture, budget operations? I mean, any part of this process. Do you have any advice to share?
Director Sechrist.
Mr. Chairman and Senator Semmelroth, yes, this is not an easy process. Starting with the stakeholder engagement was critical. Listening to parties, and we listened to both stakeholders of the STEM Action Center and stakeholders of the Workforce Development Council because, we were talking about a merger that impacted both agencies. On the staff side, I think that is where we learned a lot about there can never be enough communication on the staff side. it is so hard to go through this process with all of the unknowns and be able to, maintain staff morale and living with uncertainty. Both of my teams. I mean, at the point that we started this process, I was executive director of both organizations, and both of my teams, this was very hard to not know, what we were going. Called them AMAs, Ask Me Anything, for staff, so that they would be able to ask questions that they had, and we were honest and if we didn't have the answer to the questions. So that was, I would say this is something that, anyone going into this type of activity really does need to be thoughtful about the morale and the impact that it's going to have on their staff, and plan for that and plan for over communicating. Operationally, budget wise, we've had to work through, a few things, with the STEM Action Center is leasing space in an outside building. We're in a state building. We have the space to bring everyone into, our, things. So we have to work through, leases, and we've been working with ITS and working with facilities, and, it's not just us, it's other agencies as well that have had to help us to have answers to questions before we could truly put those budget numbers and submit a proposal that maximizes the efficiencies that we're going to achieve out of this integration.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director. I also just want to acknowledge, too, I know Representative Horman's been involved in this process for multiple years, taking interest in this and working through this as well. So thank you. Committee members, any further questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Co-Chair Lakey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Director Sechrist. So I guess I want to follow up a little bit on Representative Tanner's line of questioning. Been here long enough to remember when we put the workforce development into code, and I appreciate the 300,000 reduction and the reduction in 2 full-time employees. And engagement is great, but I think we really should be able, or should need, to see tangible results as a result of the program. Do we have more Idaho students that are going into science and engineering to support our tech industry in Idaho? And if we don't, then I guess I question the $6 million that we're spending on it. Is there a way to measure those tangibles more effectively? Frankly, to just make sure this is the right thing to be doing.
Director Sechrist.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Senator Lakey, I do agree with you wholeheartedly. A lot of the activities that the STEM Action Center has traditionally been focused on have been really in that K-6 education space. And so even being able to track those outcomes, long term requires, 6-7 years of seeing what happens with those students. But I think one of the opportunities here is, the Workforce Development Council does have pretty solid metrics. The dollars that we spend, that we invest, we are looking at, are these helping, individuals, get jobs in Idaho? Are we addressing, the needs of Idaho's employers? And one of the things that we have to have is that awareness of careers, at an early level. A kid, when they know what what their parents do, they know what their parents' friends do, but they don't necessarily know. I'm in INL today. They don't necessarily know what nuclear scientists do or radiation technicians do. And if they don't have opportunities to see that, I think one of the areas where we have a huge opportunity to improve is connecting those exploration activities, those STEM activities, to actual careers. right? So when we're doing some sort of a math or a science experiment, that we're talking about, well, this is how you can actually apply that. This is what you can do with it. And I think that that's what we bring together. But if the Workforce Development Council is solely focusing on, that high school transition into post-secondary, and we don't have that awareness at the early end, we're probably not going to solve Idaho's workforce challenges, because we simply aren't going to have people who have the visibility into the careers, into the education and the training that they need.
Thank you, Director. Representative Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Director. My question, a few years ago, I had a parent contact me about STEAM. It's like STEM, and is that considered part of your agency with adding the arts into it? And how does that work with workforce development if it is?
Director Sechrist. Director?
She's frozen.
Did she freeze?
Green froze about halfway through Representative Scott's question.
Oh.
I heard the STEAM part and asking if that's part of the mission.
Well, yeah, and I'll just as you go into the workforce development, is that STEAM coming over to the arts part of your STEM program, or is that going to get peeled off? I'm just kind of curious where that is in the whole mix.
Go ahead, Director.
Assume, because I'm still freezing up here a little bit, but I'm assuming that you're okay with me answering the question. So at this point, no, arts is not part of the overall. Council integration has focused on science, technology, engineering, and math.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Representative Tanner.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Seacrest, just follow up. I'm just trying to understand. So there's two different funding sources that are done within the STEM Action Center. There's dedicated funds, which is about the $3 million, and there's another $3 million, a little over $3 million that's done through the general fund. So curious on those two, and then as well as I get that we're doing about a 50% budget cut with the merge aspect and some of the programs that you're looking at getting rid of, but we're only cutting about 25% of the personnel. I'm just wondering why the personnel we decided to keep heavy when we're cutting so much of the funding.
Director Sechrist.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman and Representative Tanner. So the dedicated fund is spending authority. Over the last 10 years that the STEM Action Center has been in existence, they have raised certain, the amount of funds that they have raised for that dedicated STEM education fund have varied between, a couple $100,000 to over, I want to say 1 year, they raised over $2 million. So a lot of that return that you see in the $6.3 million is truly spending authority for the dedicated fund. Fundraising is one of the activities that we had to take a look at and say, is this the proper role of government? Is this, the STEM Action Center had helped to establish a 501c3 STEM Action Center Foundation. And the sole purpose of that foundation was to raise funds and give it to the state agency. And one of the things that we felt was important is that we kind of divide that that fundraising responsibility, and we say, employers were more frequently questioning, why are we giving to a state agency? We want to give to our local STEM events and STEM, community organizations. And so the foundation has kind of completed a refresh of its bylaws, of its mission and vision, and it is now a completely standalone, not affiliated at all with the STEM Action Center. But the majority of that budget return is the foundation. There is the dedicated fund. There was one position associated with the foundation. The STEM Action Center provided a state employee as the foundation director.
Representative Tanner?
Yeah, just
So-
a quick follow-up.
Yeah, go ahead, Representative.
So then if I'm understanding you correctly, then there really isn't a budget cut then, because the dedicated fund was all part of the 501c3 that was actually going away, and then we're still at about a little over a $3 million general fund going into STEM?
Director Sechrist?
Mr. Chairman and Representative Tanner, so the general fund appropriation was over 3.3 million, about 3.7 million, or 3.6. I'm having issues with math today. 3.37 million. And so the general fund savings are just over $300,000. And that includes the positions, includes cost savings that we will achieve in co-location and other operating expenditures.
Okay, thank you.
So the spending authority is separate from that.
Okay. Task members, any further questions here? Seeing none, thank you, Director Sechrist, for your presentation and taking questions. Let's go on now. Next up is the proposal of consolidating the Office of Energy and Mineral Resources with the Office of Species Conservation. We have with us Callie Younger, the Administrator of the Office of Energy and Mineral Resources. Ms. Younger, if you could introduce yourself for the record and then make your presentation.
Hi, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Callie Younger. I am the Administrator of the Office of Energy and Mineral Resources. And with me also, if we get into the weeds on questions, is Administrator Mike Edmondson from OSC. I've been in this role since March, so I feel very new, but this idea of merging these two offices is really something that has been talked about for a long time. Before I worked here and in my past job, I worked for Governor Otter, and this was something that we talked about in that administration as well. So really what this proposal would do it would put energy and mining and some permitting coordination authorities into OSC's existing statute and basically eliminate the need for an executive order agency, which is what OEMR is right now. In doing this, it would allow us to save between the two agencies about $360,000 annually, and we could probably see more savings over time, but that's what we would do initially because we would be able to cut about 4 FTEs. So that is really, what our proposal is to put these two offices together and be able to eliminate some FTEs. It makes a lot of sense because our offices serve very similar functions. We both serve as liaisons to the federal government on our office's issues. So for us, it's energy, mining, nuclear. We really are the main point of contact to the federal government on any energy projects that come into the state. We coordinate comments across all the state agencies to make sure that the state is speaking with one voice and really having a powerful seat at the table. And OSC serves a similar function in their office. They also are the point of contact for recovery plans with the federal government. But they also serve a similar coordination role. But both agencies over time have really served a very pivotal role in federal decision-making. OSC was kind of a pivotal component of the sage-grouse task force that was kind of been ongoing in the sage-grouse land use planning efforts since probably 2011. Instrumental in developing the state sage-grouse plan as well, and just being kind of the voice on that issue. OEMR has been kind of the point of contact for both on the federal and state side for major mining projects, including the Stibnite mine, including numerous mining projects that are kind of in the pipeline, and then have had a long history of coordinating on other energy. We've also been the kind of administrator or administrative arm of the Line Commission, and we'll do similar work for the Advanced Nuclear Task Force that the governor just created in September. So we sort of do a lot of that kind of policy work for the governor, so on both sides. So with that, I really I'm happy to answer questions. If it gets too technical, I may ask if Mike can come up, but that's really the pitch.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Younger. Committee members, I see Representative Scott. Go ahead.
Thank you. I didn't catch your name. I'm sorry.
This was Callie Younger.
Thank you, Callie. When I looked at this, I think what doesn't make sense to me is this seems like a natural fit with Idaho Fish and Game. They deal with wildlife management plans and area maps, and this is a species conservation agency that deals with fish and wildlife. And I just wonder why, I heard your reasonings, but can you tell me why it's better where you're at rather than Fish and Game?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Go ahead, Ms. Younger.
Yes,
Sorry.
no, it's fine. I'm happy to take a stab at that. I've worked at both agencies. I started out of law school at OSC, so I have a little bit of familiarity with both. But really, OSC is meant to be endangered species focused, and Fish and Game is really the game manager, the fish and game manager of the state. So we definitely work in close coordination with them on ESA matters, but OSC was really created for recovery planning in the state. And so their focus is truly on ESA, and it's just sort of a different, they serve very similar but different functions, because Fish and Game is managing hunting and setting population limits, but we're OSC is really focused on that ESA side of things. And so it was created in 2000, I think specifically for that purpose, and I think that there was a desire from the legislature at that time to have a separate entity that just focused on ESA matters, and to let Fish and Game kind of focus on the wildlife management component of their role. So, but you definitely work very closely, all three of our agencies, on all projects, and a lot of times Fish and Game, does the data collection and sort of as a repository that the federal government relies on for, making decisions, ESA decisions.
Okay, thank you. Representative Tanner.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Administrator Younger, I'm just more curious on, so the Office of Energy and Mineral Resources, that one was created through an executive order, I think under Otter. It's been continued now under the Little administration. I'm just more curious, has there been any look or any potential recommendations of maybe even closing the office, maybe even looking at moving you and maybe some administration people underneath just the governor himself, and more focusing on like the energy aspect of things, or the nuclear energy aspect? I know that's something that you've really kind of jumped into, and I think is important for Idaho, especially with INL. Even within that, even looking at maybe even moving like minerals over to lands. I think there's a lot that can actually be done within that. I think it's still worthwhile. There's sections of it that are worthwhile, but I think there's ways we can actually do this in a lot more efficient and a better way.
Director Younger, or Administrator Younger.
Chairman and members or Representative Tanner. So I think that's a great question, and I think that these are things that we've wrestled with. I think that there's a lot of different ways to look at the role our agency can play. There's a lot of different ways to look at OSC. I think OSC has really has a specific function, and so I think that the question of where to put them or whether or not they should be moved is talked about less than ours, because we are created by executive order. And so I think, those are definitely options. IDL already has a mining component. They're a regulator, though. And I think that there's been an interest in having, that be somewhat separate from the policy function, because, again, it's sort of like Fish and Game and OSC. They serve different functions, and so sometimes it makes sense to keep them separate. I think putting our office within the governor's office is something to consider, but it just really would make their office a little bit bigger. It's nice to have a specific office focused on energy policy. We definitely work closely with the governor's office, but it's more work than just what they're able to absorb now. And again, it for myself in particular as administrator, I have a clear mission of being that liaison, and I have a singular focus on energy work, and so having previously been in the governor's office and serving as his legal counsel, like I was spread, I had a wide portfolio, and so having a singular office that's focused on both ESA, for OSC and for energy with me, it really allows us to focus completely on that. I would also add that combining our offices is pretty consistent with things that we've seen in nearby states. Utah has an agency called PLIPCO that's really like public lands focused, and they really are the liaison to the federal government on all things Utah public lands. And I was at Department of the Interior before this. I served in the Trump administration there, and I will say they were a very effective advocate for their state. They had a lot of issues that they cared a lot about that we really didn't care a lot about, but they were relentless and pursued their agenda, and they really were very successful. And so it really showed me, being on both sides of it, how important it is to have agencies that are singularly focused on this advocacy, because as you all know, we're primarily federal land, and so what goes on those acres here affects all of us. And so for us not to have that point of contact, to have those conversations, to make sure we have a seat at the table can be really challenging. I go back to sage grouse because I've worked on that for most of my career, but we really have had, and Mike and his office and his staff have made a huge impact on what sage grouse planning looks like in the state, because they've been able to kind of be delegated that role and really serve that function for the governor. And we obviously play a role with that too, because there's it affects sage grouse land use plan affects everything in the state. But that's really why I think it makes sense to keep us, nimble and focused on those policy issues, and not to have it kind of watered down and distributed with maybe the governors or lands. But I will concede that, this is one idea of many, and this is sort of the best one that we came up with.
Okay. Representative Tanner.
I guess I can follow up a little bit. So Administrator Younger, I actually appreciate a lot of the things you're actually doing. I mean, you have put a focus back into this office, which was kind of a dying thing to me a little bit ago. My recommendation would be to 100% just get rid of it, because it really wasn't doing what it was supposed to be doing. But this is where, to me, I think you are an invaluable aspect to the state of Idaho, but I just don't know that we need to do it within an agency itself. I do see the potential benefits of, like you stated, within the agency itself, but I do think even having somebody within the governor's office that was this was their main focus was energy, and especially nuclear energy at this point in time. I do think this is something, especially with you having Trump, you'd worked for the previous Trump administration. You've already got a lot of those connections, and I think that adds to that invaluable resource that you are within the state of Idaho. But I just am trying to figure out, I mean, I don't, besides the potential value of having this agency for the agency namesake, I just cannot figure out why we should actually keep it and why we shouldn't just remove it and move you underneath the office of the governor and maybe give you some administrative help.
Director Younger, do you want to respond?
Yeah, Chairman and Representative Tanner. So I think that's sort of, I think what I'm thinking of doing is a little bit bigger than what you're suggesting, but really what this looks like is adding things from our existing executive order and some things from, the permitting efficiency component of the SPEED Act into OSC's statute. So you could really look at it as eliminating our office and giving OSC some energy and mining authorities to do work that we're doing now. And we would basically just move our staff into that umbrella. And we are a governor's office agency. And so I think some of it is logistics of, we're seated over in the Bora building rather than right into the Capitol. Both of our agencies are. And so it's just, I guess I don't know that for the work that we'd be doing, without administrative, you say add us into the governor's office with administrative help. That's basically what we're doing, because we have myself, we'd have 2 policy people working under, in energy policy folks doing this work. And then we would consolidate a few of the other positions. So the other, thing I hate to mention is that there's not a lot of savings with eliminating our office because we're federally funded. So the savings really comes from the combining us and eliminating the FTPs, because OSC does have some general funds. So that's really where you see the general fund savings, is by combining us into that agency.
Okay, thank you. I'm not seeing any further questions, so thank you for your time. Next up, to discuss the Dormitory Housing Commission, we have with us the Executive Director of the Idaho State Board of Education, Jennifer White. Director White, if you could introduce yourself for the record and then make your presentation.
Thank you, co-chairs. Committee, my name is Jennifer White. I'm Executive Director of the State Board of Education. I'm here today to speak about the Dormitory Housing Commission and a recommendation that statutes authorizing dormitory housing commissions be eliminated. Before I begin, I think there are a few caveats that are important to this discussion. The dormitory housing commissions are not creatures of the state board. So under law, they are independent body politics. So I am not speaking today on behalf of those commissions. The other awkward piece of this is that they are bodies associated with community colleges. And as you all know, we have responsibility for the academic programming that happens at community colleges, but we are not responsible for their general operation, which is governed by locally elected boards. Nevertheless, the State Board of Education has the constitutional responsibility that gives life to Title 33. And so I am here today in light of the fact that those recommendations fall under Title 33. Dormitory housing commissions were created in 1957 to provide community colleges with a mechanism to finance residential and student life facilities at a time when financing tools were limited. Over time, DHCs have become largely obsolete. Their utility is very narrow, so it's limited to residential and student life structures on community college campuses, and they do not align with modern community college missions or campus development patterns in large part. Idaho institutions now rely on more flexible, lower risk, and legally supported financial tools, including state permitted alternatives to bonding, philanthropic contributions, internal reserves, and state appropriations. One meaningful complicating factor that affects the recommendation to eliminate DHCs before you is that North Idaho College currently has a $7.2 million DHC-owned bond for its recreation center secured by housing and student fees. Now that, because the DHC technically owns this bond, any full repeal of this statute must consider bondholder protections, state creditworthiness, and the broader impact on Idaho's bond market credibility. The information we have from NIC is that the DHC does not carry any sort of administrative cost, and so their position is that this would not result in immediate cost savings to the state. And so I would caution that any elimination of a DHC would need to carve out NIC in order to facilitate the end of its bond, or that we should proceed with caution in building out a longer term look at this for future meetings of this, in future years of this committee. I am now ready to stand for questions.
Okay, thank you, Director White. Senator Lakey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director White, so with these kind of being largely obsolete, how many of them exist, and are they getting people to, these are elected positions, are they getting people to serve, and are they doing anything other than the North Idaho reference you made?
The information.
Director White?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, Co-Chair, Co-Chair Lakey. The information we have is that the NIC DHC is the only operational DHC. CWI, CEI, and CSI are not pursuing residential housing and prefer financing models without liabilities tied to dormitory housing. And so that's just not part of those other institutions' current plans. NIC is in a different situation, being located in northern Idaho. Their position is that it is very difficult for their students to find housing in that market, and they have a substantial and persistent wait list for the existing housing they have on campus. Their intent is to pay down the bond associated with this existing DHC for their rec center, and then their strategic plan does prioritize utilization of a funding model to pursue additional beds on campus to address some of the housing challenges that they have in that area. Like I said, we see other institutions using different financing models, and so I think that that's a conversation that could be had with the DHC that supports NIC, whether those other alternative funding models might help still get them to where they need to get in terms of providing housing for their students.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Senator Lakey.
Thank you. So what's the term on the $7.2 million bond? When will it be paid off?
Director White?
Co-chairs, it is payable through 2046.
Go ahead, Senator.
One more. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director White, so is it a matter of educating the folks in North Idaho College about other options? I hate to leave one thing out there for one university, if it makes sense to just get rid of them. So I don't know, just kind of a stream of consciousness looking for your response.
Director White, any response there?
Co-Chair Ehlers, Co-Chair Lakey, we've been in discussions with legal counsel about what alternatives might exist for NIC if this committee were to want to continue to pursue that. Again, we are so sensitive to ensuring that Idaho's bond rating and credibility remain protected, and so I think we want to proceed with caution if we were to propose an alternative. The question is, where does that liability go, and what impact on the state, since it's isolated right now in an independent body politic? And so that's the part that I'm still working through with legal counsel to understand what our options would be for NIC. And I would say that NIC is very emphatic that this works well for them, given their model, and I think we would need to speak to them directly about whether other alternatives have been explored with their commission. I'm not familiar with the commissioners.
Thank you, Director White.
Thank you. Representative Tanner.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director White. So again, I think I'm in the same boat as Senator Lakey when it comes to this $7.2 million now. If it is a non-incorporated body, I mean, this is what we learned this last year, is that it does fall underneath the state currently for potential liabilities. Now, I don't know I'm curious if the state treasurer is actually familiar with this one, if she actually even knows that this is actually going on, because I do sit on the Bond Banking Authority, and I have not seen this one yet, and nor did I mean, that's one of the good things about DOGE so far, is I'm learning about all these different commissions that are out there that I'm just jaw-dropped from, because it does put potential liability on the state, and I think that's where we need to reevaluate some of these ones, but it does add concern to moving it over. I don't know that it actually affects us that much. I do think the treasurer should probably weigh in on that aspect before that decision is made.
Director White, any response?
Representative or Co-Chair Ehlers, Representative Tanner, I'm with you in learning about all of these different mechanisms that exist in the state, and this was certainly one that was news to us as well. I am happy to work with this committee to gather any additional information, and happy to continue working with legal counsel about what our options are, including partnering with the treasurer to give you more information so we can make an informed decision.
Thank you. I do have a couple of questions. One, you'd mentioned there the North Idaho College was looking at possibly paying it down early. Is there a time frame on that, or did I understand that correctly?
Co-Chair Ehlers, that is not the information I have. It's payable through 2046. It is currently paid. The structure of this body is that it is currently paid through housing facility fees, occupancy charges, and student service fees. So you use a set, kind of those student activity and recreation fees to pay this down. So if memory serves me, they're closer to $5 million left on what they need to pay down so far. I don't believe that they would be in a position to pay down early given the economics of their program.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful to know. And then I think one alternative I've heard floated is that perhaps we sunset this provision that as soon as that bond is expired, this program is out, and maybe not allowing in that interim next 21 years, I guess, any more bonds to be issued or to renew. So what's your take on something like that?
Co-Chair Ehlers, I think that is would certainly be a viable option. My hesitation is only because, again, since the State Board of Education is not responsible for the day-to-day governance of our community colleges, I would certainly want to confer with their local board to understand why they have considered pursuing use of a DHC for their intended residential build-out. I can over-lawyer things, but I certainly don't want to pretend like I'm a finance expert. And so I would really want to make sure that we are engaging the right people for that conversation to ensure that we don't inhibit NIC's ability to address the demand that they see around their community.
Thank you. Representative Tanner.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to make sure I get something clarified real quick from Administrator or Director White. There is only one current commission set up across the state. The rest of them they're non-existent, right?
Director White.
Co-Chair Ehlers, Representative Tanner, they may be provided for, but none of the other institutions that we consulted with use them. So CEI, CWI, and CSI are not utilizing those commissions. The only one that is active is NIC's. NIC has 3 commissioners, 2 of whom have expired terms. I'm not sure, based on the information I have, I'm not sure if they've been reappointed. They expired relatively recently. So I'm not sure what the status is for that. It's governor appointed.
Go ahead.
I just mostly just follow up to the body here. I think I'm with you. I think looking at the sunset aspect of it is probably the smarter thing, potentially adding in that clause, allowing them to actually continue under this one. But I don't want to see more of this debt. I think there is a lot of other opportunities that they can actually look at to solve their problems without going down this road of bonding.
Thank you. Okay, not seeing anything further from the task force. So, Director White, thank you for your time. Okay, we already went through number 7. So, our last 3 items will involve Lloyd Knight, who is the Deputy Director of the State Agricultural Department. Mr. Knight, if you could introduce yourself, and our first topic right now is the proposed elimination of the Honey Commission.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Lloyd Knight, Deputy Director with Idaho State Department of Ag. Very briefly on the Honey Commission elimination, the proposal is to repeal Title 22, Chapter 28, and make some other amendments in some of the other existing statutes, primarily to ensure that there is the ability for hobbyist beekeepers to register voluntarily if they want to have their locations registered for the purpose of reporting to pesticide applicators. It's a function that we have both in our registration and licensing of apiaries as well as under the Honey Commission. It's in both statutes, looks the same in both places, but because of an exemption on hobbyist beekeepers, we want to have that ability for them to register. It allows them to show up on a map so pesticide applicators don't spray over the top of their operations. The Honey Commission is the only commission left that's housed within the department. We actually collect their assessments and issue warrants per statute back out to when they make decisions on some of those expenditures that they want to make for promotion and other projects. It's about $20,000 a year in revenue.
Okay. Task force members, questions? Senator Lakey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Deputy Director Knight, I appreciate the information. So the commission fully funded by the industry, so to speak, versus general fund money?
Deputy Director Knight.
Mr. Chairman, Co-Chair Lakey, yes, totally funded by the assessment that's collected as a dedicated fund, yes.
Thank you. Go ahead.
A follow-up, thank you. So does the industry then essentially feel like there's not a lot of benefit left to it?
Deputy Director Knight.
Mr. Chairman, Co-Chair, I'm not sure where the industry sits on it. This has been a conversation we've had within the governor's office and the agency. Wouldn't want to speak for them.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and I will just note for the benefit of the public, we will be holding public testimony, so if there is someone from industry here, they could speak at that point when we get there. So, okay, sorry. Go ahead, Senator.
Thank you, Co-Chair. Deputy Director, so if you could encapsulate for me the benefit of the elimination of the commission as far as cost or efficiency.
Deputy Director Knight.
Mr. Chairman, Co-Chair, I think the governor's focus is on a commission that has regulatory authorities that don't really quite all fit within the promotional realm. And so we were directed to work with them on working on the repeal of the commission.
Thank you.
Okay. Senator Simmelroth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Deputy Director Knight. If I heard that correctly, in terms of how you answered Senator Lakey's question, are you saying that the Honey Commission has not been contacted regarding this elimination?
Deputy Director Knight.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Simmelroth, we haven't, no. This has been a conversation that's been within the governor's office.
Senator, follow up.
No, thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Representative Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director, I'm curious, like there's the Barley Commission, the Grapes Commission, the Potato Commission. Why did you single out the Honey Commission? Why would we get rid of that one and not all the other ones?
Deputy Director Knight.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Scott, primarily because this is the commission that resides underneath our statutes and within our purview. Those other commissions are outside of our purview altogether. We don't handle their money or do any other activity related to those.
Representative Scott, follow up.
I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions on this topic from the committee? Okay, seeing none, let's go on to your next topic, the integration of the sheep and goat board to the Department of Ag. If you could reintroduce yourself and then speak to this topic, please.
I feel like we're doing rules all over again, Mr. Chairman. I don't like that at all. Gives me the heebie-jeebies. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Lloyd Knight, Deputy Director of the Idaho State Department of Agriculture, here to talk about the proposal to integrate the sheep and goat, or at least the health functions of the sheep and goat health board within the Department of Agriculture. The Sheep and Goat Health Board is a function that's been around probably time immemorial. I haven't looked up the date for sure, but it is obviously one of our oldest agricultural industries in the state. It functions as serving two purposes to the sheep and goat industry. Primarily is dealing as an oversight body and setting policy and requirements and governance regarding health issues, so animal health and disease issues specific to sheep and goats. Also, there's a promotional aspect within their statute as well. The proposal is to integrate the health aspects in under our statutes under the state veterinarian, making them consistent with all other livestock in the state. The proposed change does keep the promotional aspect, and that keeps that board and account in place, but we would treat the animal health aspects of sheep and goat consistent with all other livestock, loop it in under the rest of our existing statutory authority in Title 25, Chapter 2, and let the state veterinarian deal with those health issues.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Director Knight. Committee members, any questions? Representative Tanner.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sorry to get your Lord. Director Knight, just curious. I know Fish and Game spends quite a bit of money on bighorn sheep and mountain goats in general. I guess there's a flu that comes out, and we're constantly tagging them and taking them down and monitoring them because of the domestic aspect of there's some type of flu virus that they carry that doesn't really affect them, that does affect the natural wildlife population. So I'm just curious, like, what you talked about the veterinary aspect. I'm just curious what's actually being done in a sense to mitigate that, to potentially save money, because we are spending a lot in going out and monitoring those and tagging those and then removing them as well when they do carry that virus.
Deputy Director Knight.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Tanner, very simply, two very different issues and populations that we're talking about. The Sheep and Goat Health Board currently deals with domestic sheep and goats rather than wild. So on the domestic side, think of the import and export of those animals, disease control activities to those. When there's interaction with some of those wildlife issues, certainly we already deal with that integration and cooperation between the state veterinarian and Fish and Game on a number of other issues. Think domestic cervidae, think brucellosis, think those sorts of things. So we both have separate lanes that we run. Fish and Game takes care of the wildlife. We take care of the domestics. We do cooperate when there's that interaction between the two, but they're very separate lanes.
Go ahead, Representative Tanner, for a follow-up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Knight, I now understand that the domestic side is where I was asking, because I know they carry the virus, and I know you talked about the veterinary aspect of it. I'm more curious if they've been able to isolate that and treat that so it's not actually going over, if we've even looked into that from that standpoint.
Okay,
Deputy Director Knight.
Mr. Chairman, Representative, sorry, I misunderstood where you were going with your question. Not an expert in the disease, but I know that certainly that's a concern that happens in some of the interaction that happens between domestic and wild populations, certainly in range situations. Probably not something that the board has done to my knowledge, it's not something that the board, as it currently stands, has done a lot of research in, but it is one of those things that we do get involved in those conversations when it comes to those range decisions that the public lands agencies will make related to permits and some of those things in those range environments. So no research or solution finding necessarily specific to that disease, but know that it's a thing. There's some interactions, and we work through some of those restrictions and issues that come up.
Okay, thank you. Senator Lakey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Deputy Director Knight. So how is it handled currently? Do they contract with the vet? How are the health issues addressed? And then if we move it under the state vet, are we seeing a cost savings as doing that?
Deputy Director Knight.
Mr. Chairman, Senator or Co-Chair Lakey, currently they actually rely on the state veterinarian for a lot of that interaction. So this is really just taking it back, taking that policy aspect and that regulatory decision-making aspect back and treating it like the rest of the diseases without that additional layer of I guess, interaction decision-making. I'm not sure why it was ever originally set up. I'm sure, there's probably a focus and reasons that the sheep industry back in time wanted to have their own decision-making authority and their own ability to hire their own veterinarian as a commission if they wanted to and make those recommendations. A lot of that work does end up going through the department, either formally or informally. I think the idea was, let's just make it consistent with everything else under the state vet, under those existing authorities.
Follow up?
Yeah, go ahead, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Deputy Director Knight. So essentially it's a revenue wash.
Deputy Director.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, Senator. Yeah, for us, it's a revenue wash.
Cost revenue, sure.
Yeah.
One more follow-up?
Go ahead, Senator.
Any input from industry on that? We may hear today, but just curious what you've received.
Deputy Director.
Mr. Chairman, Co-Chair Lakey, yes, we've had conversations. I know the director's had conversations with the current chair of the Sheep and Goat Health Board. Between us and the governor's office, there's been conversations with a number of the either members of the board or members within industry. I don't think they all love the idea of losing that board aspect, but I don't know that they're standing behind me, to my knowledge, with pitchforks pointed at me quite yet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no further questions on this topic, we'll go to the last topic, which is the State Brand Board. So once again, if you could introduce yourself for the record and then discuss this topic.
Sure. Again, for the record, Lloyd Knight, Deputy Director of the Idaho State Department of Agriculture, here to talk about evaluation that we've done for potential consolidation between the Brand Board and the Idaho State Department of Agriculture. And I will say at the outset, this one is probably a little more in-depth and deserves a little more in-depth conversation and consideration, with stakeholders in the industry. There's a lot more involved with this potential consolidation. Certainly, both agencies have their own budgets, their own funding sources. We're obviously a larger agency with multiple dedicated federal and general fund appropriations and programs, more employees statewide, all of that kind of thing. The Brand Board is wholly dedicated fund, governed by the Brand Board, and their program activities are governed by that board, set in policy by that board. They're currently within the Idaho State Police and are integrated in there, and certainly Cody Berlisle can speak in more detail with how their department works and the board and all of that. The question was brought to us of what about that potential integration, and certainly there are potentials of some integration that may prove helpful in staffing, helpful in the work. We certainly share the same clientele in the work that we do as well as the board. Ours generally focuses more on animal health regulation, certainly not on ownership. They deal with ownership, not on animal health, but we end up in a lot of the same places working with a lot of the same people. I think the question is that probably deserves a lot more discussion and thought with stakeholders and between the two departments is how can that integration look? Certainly there's states around the country that have moved away from having either a standalone brand department or board and having them integrated in a State Department of Ag. Some of them still keep them separate. Some states have moved to having less law enforcement officers, more inspectors that aren't necessarily post-certified in our nomenclature, and still have a board that works through a policy and rulemaking role. But really probably a lot of questions still to discuss on what that integration might look like here. Certainly as an agency, we maintain, I think, 24, 25 separate dedicated funds within our agency for all of our programs that we manage separately and keep all those pots of money apart. Even though we have employees that work in multiple programs and charge their time and their operating expenses to those programs, we do account for them separately. So for us, mechanically, it's certainly possible that we could integrate the brand department into our agency. I can't tell you today exactly what that would look like because, quite frankly, we really haven't had a chance to really dive in and understand all of the nuances of the FTPs and how they're assigned and what they're paid and all of those sorts of things for their agency versus ours. Certainly, I know, and I'm sure you'll hear that industry has concerns. So certainly, stakeholders need to be. We've had some conversations with stakeholders. They've got concerns, and it probably is one of those things that needs to have a lot more discussion. As we've told the stakeholders along the way, should the legislature decide this is the kind of action they want to pursue, it's our job to do the best we can to make that happen as effectively and as efficiently as we can. But I'm not here today to probably outline a complete plan for you of what that integration would look like, what would be saved operationally, what would be saved with FTPs. I think it needs quite a bit more study. Within our department, similar to theirs, again, we have a statewide footprint across numerous programs. So we're in a lot of the same places. In Lewiston, for example, our staff share an office space or at least a basic suite. Anyway, I can certainly answer any questions. And I know, as I said, Cody Berlisle's here and can certainly answer questions specific to the board.
Thank you, Deputy Director Knight. Questions on this one? Senator Lakey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Deputy Director Knight. So I have heard from folks in my district, my cattlemen, and they do have concerns. It sounds like that it's an idea not really fleshed out. You don't have any particular efficiencies or cost savings to identify at this point. Am I mistaken there? Just kind of an idea that might be explored, or describe it for me.
Deputy Director Knight.
Mr. Chairman, Co-Chair Lakey, yeah, I think it needs a lot more fleshing out. I think it's one that as you start to discuss it, you realize, and I think all of us that have been around the industry know there's a lot of layers to it. And it's an idea that's probably been brought up a couple of times in past history. That integration, though, they're in ISP now, and I think Cody will describe what that integration looks like and what he, I think what he and the board probably know of some possible issues that might come up in trying to integrate in with us. But without having had the opportunity, really knowing that there's concerns from industry and we've been talking to them along the way, it's probably been one of those things that I don't want to say it's taken away from more time and trying to figure out how it works, but certainly they've had a lot of discussion and ideas that they've put forward to us. It is going to need more time to flesh that kind of thing out.
So I also want to point out, and I forgot on the agenda, we do have Cody Burlisle with us, the state brand inspector, and he said he would also willing to answer any questions that we might have. He doesn't have prepared remarks, but we can call on him as well. So if you want to defer right now, or
one more comment.
Go ahead, Senator Lakey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Deputy Director Knight. So one of the things that I've learned in years of life is sometimes you pick your battles, and I guess I question, is there value to picking this battle, and is there merit to it? If maybe more exploration, you'll find that there isn't, but it seems like there may be other things to focus on from my perspective, but I'll let you comment on that, and that's all, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Any comment, Deputy Director Knight?
Mr. Chairman and Co-Chair Lakey, that leaves me with a pretty broad canvas, and I will say that I'll match that with a life lesson that is there's a lot of study that needs to be done. We're an agency that never says no, but certainly we're an agency that recognizes when there's probably some time to flesh out some things.
Thank you. Okay, State Inspector, do you have a comment? Let's bring you up. If you can introduce yourself for the record and make your remarks.
Sure. So my name's Cody Burlisle. I'm the Executive Director for the Idaho Brand Board, and I serve as the State Brand Inspector. Don't have a lot of prepared remarks. I'd gladly answer any questions you may have. As we move forward and look forward, the Brand Board, myself, look forward to working with the task force and however you would choose to move forward. And like Director Knight said, I think this is something that we need to have some more discussions with industry on.
Thank you. Representative Tanner.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do see the potential speed that actually could, by doing something like this, could actually speed things up. I do see some immediate cost savings. I do personally like the getting the legislature back in control, because currently this is a self-governing type agency. With the legislature, it's very limited control over, except for doing something like this. I do think that they're potentially, looking at it like some type of transitional plan might be something to look into. I guess my biggest issue that I've kind of come across is the enforcement aspect of it. So livestock transportation, I do think that would have to be reassigned, because currently that authority is under the brand inspector. So I do think that that's the only thing I see that as like a big red herring in this is, where do you give that authority for that livestock transportation enforcement?
You can respond to that if you wish, Inspector Burlisle. Or
Co-Chair Ellers, Representative Tanner, you're exactly right. So currently, the way we're structured, we are a self-governed agency governed by those 5 board members that are appointed by, or nominated by industry and appointed by the governor. Myself, I work for the board. Our staff and how we are tied to the Idaho State Police at this point is primarily through staffing. So we are tied together with their HR function. We fall under state policies and under Idaho State Police procedures and policies. Additionally, we do have about 23 commissioned officers at this point. Commission brand inspectors that, they receive their commission status through the colonel at the Idaho State Police. That said, we went to a hybrid model of where not all of our inspectors are law enforcement. The board chose to move that direction a couple years ago now, realizing that it's more efficient for us to utilize those law enforcement officers where we need them, but do we need everybody as a law enforcement officer? So we have already moved to that separate categorization of brand inspector. But that said, those ones that are commissioned, the authority comes through the Idaho State Police, as well as training. Stuff like that is shared with Idaho State Police. We pay our own way, but there's several benefits that we can benefit from there at the Idaho State Police. It does not cost them more money, doesn't cost us more money, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Representative Tanner, follow up.
Yeah, this is just more of a question that you may know or not. So one of the things we've actually run into across the state of Idaho is waste disease within some of the deer population. A lot of this from looking into this and hearing from like Fish and Game, part of this is because we've actually had cattle that have actually come through the state of Idaho or that have been brought up from the state of Idaho, some from probably Mexico, that are carrying some type of disease that actually transfers over to wildlife. I'm just curious, is this something you guys, when you guys are doing transport aspects, that you guys inspect, and how does that get monitored?
All right.
Inspector Berlau.
Chairman Ellers and Representative Tanner, we're the wrong shop for that. We inspect for ownership. Who is the owner of the livestock and verify that ownership. The animal health side does go to Department of Agriculture, falls under the state veterinarian side. That said, our inspectors are looking at health papers and stuff like that to make sure people have the proper documentation. But as far as tracking those diseases and anything of that nature would go through the state veterinarian's office.
Follow up. Go ahead, Representative Tanner.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm just now curious if that portion's already under ag, is there a potential benefit of actually moving this under ag and actually still giving the state police the authority on the livestock transportation aspect?
Inspector Berlau.
Chairman Ellers, Representative Tanner, potentially. I think that's something that needs looked at closer. I can tell you currently today, we work very closely with our ag inspectors and counterparts that way, sometimes on a daily basis. Just because we're in a separate agency doesn't mean that we're not, working with them consistently.
Okay. Thank you. Senator Lakey.
Thank you, Co-Chair. Mr. Berlisle, so we're tasked to look for improvements in government efficiency, eliminating things that aren't necessary, cost savings, but also providing the appropriate service that we need to be. From your perspective at this point, you've acknowledged it needs some more discussion, but what do you see in your mind as the pros and the cons at this point, without further discussion that might generate more? But what do you see the pros and cons from your perspective right now?
Inspector Berlau.
Co-Chair Lakey, I can see some pros. Essentially, if they deal with livestock, we deal with livestock, and maybe it's kind of a one-stop shop for, say, a producer. I think largely in Idaho, our producers already know who the brand department is and who the animal health side is, but I could see that as a potential. That's a really difficult one to answer at this point. We are strictly dedicated funds governed by a governing board. It would really be getting down into the details to see what are those pros and cons.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any further questions, so Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. So now that we've heard the presentations, we'll go into the public testimony portion of our meeting. And we only have a few signed up. Since we are on this one right now, I'll call up Spencer Black of the Idaho Cattlemen Association. Mr. Black, if you could introduce yourself for the record. Our meeting is going long, so if you could take 2 minutes. And I do believe we have a letter from you already in our emails. So go ahead, Mr. Black.
Okay. Co-chairs Ehlers. Sorry, I shouldn't just read this. Co-chairs Senator Lakey and co-chairs Representative Ehlers. I am Spencer Black. I live in Alamo. I am the immediate past president of the Idaho Cattle Association. I have a lot of information right here that has already been discussed, so I'm just going to briefly go over it. I think the biggest concern was this came at us after we had held this stakeholder group. At that time, I was feeder council chair. I wasn't even in leadership yet with Idaho Cattle Association. There was a lot of time that went into that, and I would say that that department has already gone through the DOGE process before we were here at this task force. We did have our membership meeting last week, and this is one of the questions that we brought up to membership. The largest majority want to keep the brand department in Idaho State Police. It's not an abstract administration office function. It's field-based, time-sensitive, and enforcement-driven operation. Policy framework built without stakeholder input is unlikely to work. As cattlemen, we do like to tell people when they do well, I won't say that when they do something wrong, but yeah, we like to point that out when something's done wrong. Something like this does need to come before industry and have more discussion about. Is there any questions?
Committee members, he's willing to stand for questions. So Senator Lakey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Black, thanks for coming today. I appreciate you being here. Obviously, more discussions needed. Do you see any potential pros and cons at this point?
Mr. Black.
Representative Ehlers, Senator Lakey, I do think that there are some efficiencies to be had in the future. The traceability and some of the things that are coming down the pike with technology, there is going to be changes in the industry. We've also talked about those changes most of my life. This discussion will be had again, but as the technology progresses, there will be more that the technology in the industry will drive when that time comes forward, would be my opinion.
Okay, thank you. Committee members, any further questions? Okay. Representative Tanner, go ahead.
Yeah, just curious if there was a transitional period to move away or to switch this, what would that look like for you guys?
Mr. Black.
Co-Chairman Ehlers, Representative Tanner, that is not an easy process. That brings everybody to the table with livestock. That includes when we did this stakeholder group, we had Livestock Marketing Association, we had Farm Bureau in there, we had the Idaho Dairy Association in there, and we also even brought in members of the Quarter Horse Association to have that discussion because it involves everybody with livestock. And it's going to take a lot of time. I'm not going to say it's going to take 3 months. It could take 2 years is the kind of time frame that those decisions that it'll take because it affects so many industries.
Follow-up, Representative Tanner?
No.
Okay. All right, I see no further questions, so thank you, Mr. Black, for your remarks. Is there anyone else here that wishes to testify on this particular subject about the brand board and the brand inspectors? Okay, not seeing any. We'll then take public testimony on our other topics. The only others I had signed up were around the Big Payette Lake Water Quality Council. Do you two still wish to testify? Okay, let's start. Deb Faraday, you signed up first. So if you'd introduce yourself for the record and then make your testimony, please.
Yes, thank you. Deb Faraday, Big Payette Lake Water Quality Council President. This is concerning the proposed repeal of the Big Payette Lake Water Quality Act, Title 39, Chapter 66. So when there was an article that appeared in the Capital Sun, I had a lot of people call me because they were very curious about what was happening. And I will just say this, that I know that we as a 501c3 will probably still be able to do our work, but I will say that the act is very, very important. The introductory language itself of the act is very foundational for our work today as a volunteer board. Payette Lake is loved by many Idahoans. I'm a lifelong resident of McCall, and I remember my dad being the Valley County Commissioner when this original council was formed in the early 90s. The act has great historical significance, and it established best management practices that local agencies and the city of McCall still use today when working in the Payette watershed. We ask about the need to see this historical act repealed, as there is no financial responsibility from the state because the original council and the Citizens Committee were sunsetted around 2005, I believe was the year. Even though we don't think our advocacy work would be directly affected, since our current council is a 501c3, we feel this important historical act should remain on the books, upholding an historical record for the state's commitment to water quality and to those who championed the Big Payette Lake Water Quality Act. Payette Lake is a gem that all Idahoans cherish. It is McCall's sole source of drinking water, and it is extremely important to the local and the state economy. As a local who taught in McCall Donnelly High School for 25 years, and as a family business owner in McCall, and I have grandchildren growing up on Payette Lake as I did, I'm passionate about the health of Payette Lake. Our current Water Quality Council would like to see this act remain in the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your remarks. I don't see any questions. So next up, Laura Sheely, also Big Payette Lake Water Quality Council. If you could introduce yourself for the record, and also let's have some brief remarks. We'll try to go to 2 minutes. Thank you.
This should be brief. It's Laura Sheely, 2153 East Solitude Court in Boise. I'm here representing Big Payette Lake Water Quality Council as well. This is regarding the repeal of Title 39, Chapter 66. The Big Payette Lake Water Quality Act, enacted in 1993's purpose was to protect the water quality of Big Payette Lake, and demonstrated the weight and intent of the legislature to protect the water quality of Payette Lake. The Big Payette Lake Management Plan is a result of the act establishing best management practices for preserving the water quality of the lake. This plan currently has ongoing updates through the WAG, the Watershed Advisory Group, and DEQ, along with the cooperation of many other stakeholders. My father, Peter Johnson, was instrumental in establishing this act after extensive evaluation of the health of Payette Lake determined water quality degradation. Our concern is with the elimination of the act. Do we jeopardize future water quality efforts and cooperation among multiple entities? In addition, since the council and adopted plan was determined to have no fiscal impact on the state, there appears to be no justifiable reason to repeal the act. Leave it be for the historical record. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. All right. I just want to make sure for those are the only ones that signed up for the record. So is there anybody else on any of the topics that wishes to comment? I'll just go through them one by one. And if you want to desire to comment, please stand up. The Bingo Raffle Advisory Board, the Lottery and Liquor, the Soil and Water Commission and Department of Resources, the STEM Action Center, the Office of Energy and Mineral Resources with the Office of Species Conservation, the Dormitory Housing Commission, the Regional Committees for Early Intervention Services, the Honey Commission, and then the Sheep and Goat Board. Okay. Seeing no further, we'll close our public testimony. So task force members, we've now come to the point on the agenda for making recommendations. And for the benefit of the task force, let me just give a little clarity. I think a good way to go about doing this is we can just take these 10 before us one by one, and the chair would entertain a motion. And I really foresee maybe two options. One, which is a motion to recommend that the DOGE Task Force, or make this a DOGE Task Force recommendation for legislation in the next session. I guess the other option is a motion just to hold it for further review. Maybe you'll get creative and come up with some other motion, but in my mind, that seems like sort of the two paths forward we have on these 10 proposals before us. Before I go any further, Co-Chair Lakey, anything you want to add before we get to this?
Co-Chair.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's just start with number one. This was the topic of essentially striking the Bingo Raffle Advisory Board so its duties would fall under the Lottery Commission. I think if we get a motion, we can have a discussion around that motion. All right, Senator Lakey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I did want to make one general comment. Before I make a motion, this is a recommendation from the committee, and we have a certain amount of time to review things. Really all of this. We're not a legislative committee, but even standing committees have to go through the legislative process. So those that may vote a certain way today, I don't think they're bound to vote any particular way in the future. We're just taking a vote based on what we have now and recognize the opportunity to learn more in the future, correct?
Yeah, I'd echo that, Senator Lakey, that I think if the recommendation is to move forward, then we'd have to draft legislation, and that may, what's in there you may end up not liking. You may have recommended it and voted one way, but then when it gets to legislation, it may be something that you couldn't support. So I don't think we're necessarily bound individually by this, but I think it's important for us as a task force to do what we're tasked with. So, all right, go ahead, Senator.
Thank you. Then, Mr. Co-Chair, I'd move that we do recommend legislation supporting the merger of the bingo. Well, essentially, it was almost an elimination the way it was described of the Bingo Raffle Advisory Board, consolidating it into or giving its responsibilities to the Lottery Commission.
Okay, motion on the table. Do we have a second of that motion?
Second by Senator Bierke.
Senator Bierke. All right, second. Any discussion on that motion? Give a minute here for those on Zoom. Okay. I'm not seeing any. So the motion before us is to recommend essentially the elimination of the Bingo Raffle Advisory Board and putting the duties under the Lottery Commission. Those in favor signify by voting aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed by nay? Hearing none, the motion passes. Okay. Next up is the second agenda item, which is consolidation of lottery and liquor. The chair would entertain a motion on that topic. I don't think you can make a motion, Mr. Tatro, but do you have a comment?
Not for a motion, Mr. Chairman. Regarding bingo raffle, that was submitted through Idaho Code Cleanup. So if the committee wishes, that could be added as part of those provisions as well. We did review them as staff, and they could move forward under that piece if that would help, instead of a separate piece of legislation.
Thank you for that clarification. I think given the action we just took, we can probably move it forward as its own recommendation and own legislation. So, thank you. Okay. No other motions from over there? Okay. All right. So the topic before us, the lottery and liquor divisions. Senator Lakey.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. I was listening to Mr. Arulanandam's presentation remotely, but if I recall correctly, there seemed to be a good list of benefits to this, but still felt like it needed a little more time to explore how all of those things would be approached and what aspects needed to be addressed and how to do it. So to me, it felt more like let's hold on to this for a little bit. So I think I would make that motion to hold the consolidation of the lottery and liquor commissions into committee for further investigation.
Okay. Thank you. We have a motion to second. Senator
I'll second.
Summeroth, I see that. Okay. So the motion is to hold this idea of consolidation of the lottery and liquor divisions for further review. Is there any discussion on this motion? Okay, I see some microphones on, but guess not. All right. Those in favor of this motion signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed by nay? Okay, motion carries. All right, next up, number 3, which was the integration of Soil and Water Commission to the Department of Water Resources. The chair would entertain a motion. Representative Tanner.
Yeah, just for a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Motion's in order.
I make a motion to put recommendations from the DOGE Committee to integrate the Soil and Water Commission to the Department of Water Resources.
Okay, is there a second on that motion?
Senator Bierke will second that.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there discussion on this motion? I'm not seeing any or hearing any. Okay. Those in favor of the motion to integrate the Soil and Water Commission to the Department of Water Resources signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by nay? Hearing none, the motion passes. Okay, let's go to number 4. This is regarding moving the STEM Action Center to the Workforce Development Council. The chair would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Senator Semmelroth.
I move that we, I would like to make a motion that we recommend legislation to consolidate the STEM Action Center with the Workforce Development Council.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second? Representative Tanner seconds the motion. Okay, any discussion on the motion? Senator Lakey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just along the lines of the comments from Representative Tanner and myself, this does result in some benefit, some savings, a reduction in full-time employees, but I really hope that there can be some additional measurables as to the effectiveness of it overall.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Representative Tanner.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just second what Senator Lakey said. I do want to push the Workforce Development Council to make sure that they do a lot better job than the STEM Action Center on actual evaluation. And I do think the legislature needs to be continuing looking at this, making sure that we are seeing actionable results for some of these programs that are out there.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? Okay, seeing none, the motion is to recommend that the STEM Action Center be, what was the right word? Was it merged? Consolidated to the Workforce Development Council. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed by nay? And the motion carries. Okay. Let's go to number 5. This is the consolidation of the Office of Energy and Mineral Resources with the Office of Species Conservation. The chair would entertain a motion on that topic. Representative Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to make a motion to hold this one in committee. And I'll just speak to that. I don't like the way that this is under an office that's created under an executive order. if we get a new governor for some reason that's maybe more conservative or something and doesn't continue the executive order, where would this agency go? And so I'm just thinking maybe there's a better place for it and a better path for it. And for that, that's why I think we should hold it and maybe look into it a little deeper of where it best fits. And I do think it overlaps a lot with Fish and Game, and I just want to see if there's any conflicts there with the path forward. So,
okay, thank you. Is there a second to the motion? Representative Tanner, seconds. Okay, any further discussion on this motion? Representative Tanner.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been looking at the Office of Energy and Mineral Resources besides the Office of Species Conservation, but I've mostly focused on the Office of Energy and Mineral Resources. And I do think there's things within that, and I kind of echo what Representative Scott had stated. When this was created under executive order, I do see the valuation, like some benefits of actually just getting rid of this office. I do see the Administrator Young being a crucial role within moving energy forward, especially nuclear energy. But I think there's other ways we can actually do that and utilize her services without having this agency. And then I would probably echo a little bit more in within species conservation, maybe even looking at Fish and Game for that.
Okay, thank you. Senator Lakey.
I was going to expound a little more, but Representative Tanner did a good job describing it. I think Ms. Younger does a great job. We just need some time to figure out the right way to do it.
Thank you. Anything further? Okay. Seeing none, the motion is to hold for further review the consolidation of the Offices of Energy and Mineral Resources and the Office of Species Conservation. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed by nay? Hearing none, the motion carries. Okay. Let's go to number 6 on the agenda, which is the Dormitory Housing Commission. The chair would entertain a motion for this one. Senator Lakey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This sounds like a very worthy topic, as in it's largely obsolete, but I think we do need a little time to figure out how to deal with the existing outstanding bond and the right way to handle that. So I think it has merit to move forward, but I'd move we hold it and hear a little bit more on the options to deal with that North Idaho College bond.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second on that motion? Representative Tanner seconds the motion. Is there further discussion on this motion? Representative Tanner.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think my concerns are as well. I do think we'd want the treasurer to actually give her her 2 cents to that. I don't see the benefit of actually keeping it in general, so my recommendation would be to get rid of it. But I do think we are going to have to figure out a way to extend some aspect of that one bond that's actually out there until that's actually, and then it would actually repeal itself at that time.
Okay, thank you. Committee, any further comments or discussion on this motion? Okay.
Chair Ehlers, this is Senator Bjerke.
Go ahead, Senator.
I know, taking into account what Director White was talking about, this is a unique situation that affects North Idaho College specifically because of the demographics and the housing issues up here. Not only should we be looking at the issue of the bond and the future of the Housing Commission, but we should be also taking time to hear from them or to work with them on finding other ways of funding what they need to fund without the use of the Dormitory Housing Commission.
Thank you, Senator Berkey. All right, seeing no further discussion, the motion is to hold for further review any action on the Dormitory Housing Commission. So those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed by nay? Hearing none, the motion carries. All right, number 7. The regional committees for early intervention services. The chair would entertain a motion on this agenda item. Yes. Representative Scott.
I make a motion to move this forward.
Okay. Any second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Representative Tanner seconds it. Any discussion on this motion? Okay, I'm not seeing any. So the motion is to move forward on the recommendation to eliminate the regional committees for early intervention services. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed by nay? Seeing none, the motion passes. All right, let's go to number 8, which is the elimination of the Honey Commission. The chair would entertain a motion on this topic. Representative Tanner.
Yeah, for a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Motion's in order.
I make a motion to eliminate the Honey Commission.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Senator Bjorky seconds that. All right, any discussion on the motion? Senator Lakey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My only reluctance, I'll vote for the motion, but do want to comment that Department of Ag hadn't engaged with the Honey Commission on this one. But at the same time, they aren't here today, but I think it's important that they do have an opportunity to weigh in, which they will, on legislation, but just wanted to note that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Senator Semmelroth.
for the same reasons that Senator Lakey just outlined, I will be voting no on this motion.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, the motion is to recommend the elimination of the Honey Commission. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed by nay?
Nay.
And do the nays wish to be recorded?
Yes, please.
Sure.
Senator Semmelroth,
Sure.
and the sure is Representative Scott.
Heather.
Okay,
Representative Scott.
thank you.
A note for the record, Mr. Chairman.
For the record, Senator.
The description was that they would keep that registration. So however this potential legislation might be drafted, it does retain that so they can register for those that are spraying pesticides.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll note that for the record. Okay. Number 9, the integration of the Sheep and Goat Board to the State Department of Ag. The chair would entertain a motion. Representative Tanner.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, for a motion.
Motion's in order.
I make a motion to integrate the Sheep and Goat Board to the Department of Ag.
Okay. Is there a second on this motion?
I'll second.
Senator Semmelroth, was that you? Okay.
Yes.
All right. We do now have a second. Is there a discussion on this motion? Representative Tanner, if you wish to speak to your motion.
Mostly, I just want to make sure that the Department of Ag actually does, and just makes sure this is actually stated fact within the committee that they work within the Fish and Game. I do think there's some improvements that actually can be done within that. I know that part of what the Department of Ag is already doing some of that stuff currently within the health of the domestic sheep and goat board, but I think there could be some correlation that they need to talk a little bit more on to make sure our wildlife is actually being protected in this.
Okay, thank you. Senator Lakey.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. And I believe from my notes, the way they described it, this would be the integration of the health functions for domestic sheep and goats. So it's under the Idaho State Vet, but it does keep the board intact for promotional purposes, if I recall.
I believe that's accurate. Representative Tanner, does that accurately reflect the motion you're making?
That does.
Okay. All right. Then that is the motion. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, the motion is to integrate the sheep and goat board, particularly the animal health services, to the Department of State Ag, leaving intact the promotional aspect of the board. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by nay? Hearing none, the motion carries. All right, we'll go to the last one. Number 10, the integration of the state brand board and state brand inspectors. The chair would entertain a motion on this topic. Senator Lakey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It sounds like there might be some discussion here, folks willing to talk about it, but it's not clear in my mind the pros and cons, and does merit further discussion before anything could move forward, if anything moves forward. So I would move that we hold this one in committee for further discussion.
Okay. Motion before us. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Second.
Representative Tanner seconds. Any discussion on that motion? Representative Tanner?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do see cost benefits to doing this. I do see the speed at what this could actually work. Them being benefits. I do not also like the self-governing agencies. It does limit our legislative control aspect of it. But I do see some issues within it, especially within the livestock transportation and where that actually resides in, whether it is a state police aspect or how that actually would work. And I do think that there's some stakeholders out there that have some recommendations within this, but I do see true benefits immediately from doing this. So I do think this is something we should continue to look at.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this motion? Okay, seeing none, the motion is to hold for further review the integration of the state brand board and state brand inspectors into the Department of Ag. Those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed by nay? No nays, the motion carries. All right. Thank you. That was a lot of votes, but we got through it, and appreciate the work of this task force and all the people that came and spoke and gave public input, and appreciate the work of our staff. We do intend to hold a December meeting. The question is trying to figure out how to get that on the calendar. So we will be in touch. If you have, this will be the last opportunity as the DOGE Task Force for this upcoming session. As we've spoken, this is a multi-year project. But if you have things for task members I'm talking to, if that you want to run through as a recommendation of the DOGE Task Force, if you could work with the co-chairs on that to get that on the agenda for December, if you want it for the upcoming legislative session. Otherwise, we'd have to wait until next interim to get it into another legislative session under DOGE. For my co-chair, do you have any closing remarks that you'd like to make?
Co-chair, appreciate you covering today, and apologize for arriving a little bit late with the day job, but appreciate everybody being here and their testimony, and look forward to our last meeting and seeing what else we move forward.
Thank you. All right. Let's be in touch for any further meetings. Look for an announcement, and the DOGE Task Force is adjourned.